We couldn't get ready for the Grey Cup without bringing in Marshall Ferguson of TSN, who's going to be everywhere this week. He and Dutch will be hosting Grey Cup Saturday on TSN, and Marshall's going to be cranking out a ton of content on his personal channel, but of course at CFL.ca. Marsh, what's up? What's the vibe in Regina like right now?
Just settling in. I've been here since Tuesday, so I feel like I've acclimated to the weather. I watched practice outdoor yesterday for both Toronto and Winnipeg. I feel like I might have acclimated to the conditions better than the Argonauts because it seems like they weren't really interested in the cold, despite what you might hear. So, it was nice to get in nice and early, get myself set for what the week's events are going to be, and then kind of figure out what we want to try and do for content to make everybody more and more interested in this game.
Well, I mean, there's nothing like the Grey Cup, and I know you and the gang are going to be all over it, and Bomber fans can't get enough of it for obvious reasons. Just before we get to the game, what did you think of the Bombers' win over BC and the way they got it done and that atmosphere here in Winnipeg on Sunday afternoon? My God.
Yeah, it was incredible. And it's the second straight week where I've been able to say, doing a post-game Twitter space on the CFL's Twitter handle, that it's pretty special when you're at a game that has 20,000 people and you leave that charged up environment in the East to sprint to a television and start watching the Western playoffs, and you watch an environment that has 30,000 people, right? And like that's pretty incredible to do in back-to-back weeks and to see that come to life. So I've really enjoyed the last couple of weeks of playoff coverage, just because I think you can see from coast to coast how excited people are about high quality football, because there's nothing like playoff football. Like we get excited about the regular season and storylines build, but really the regular season in the CFL is about earning your right to host a playoff game so you can have that environment that BC had in the Western Semi, that Winnipeg had last week. And then to do what they did, I think really with the running game is what jumps out to me. Like Brady Oliveira had 48.6% of the targeted touches for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in that game. Being anywhere over 32% in my experience is crazy. Like most running backs, when you combine their pass and their rush targets, don't cross that 32% threshold. Like that's 32% is like Andrew Harris for a full season type stuff when he's at the height of his powers. For Brady to have 48%, it was like everything was going through him. And I started going through the box score and seeing, man, Ellingson only had like 3 targets, and man, Schoen only had 4. Was Bailey really involved? No, Bailey wasn't that involved. I'm like, where are all the targets going? And then I go, oh, look, Brady had 25 of them. Okay, now I know where all of the targets were going. So if that continues in the Grey Cup with that offensive line, I think Winnipeg's going to be in control of the football game on Sunday.
Well, that, really is what playoff football is all about, especially in the middle of November on the prairies playing for the Grey Cup. And in a lot of ways, it seems like this Winnipeg Blue Bomber team has been built for November, and it starts with that offensive line. And you mentioned Brady Oliveira, who had just an incredible game, and obviously the running back matchup in this game could not be more juicy for obvious reasons. But I think back to 2019 when the Bombers were underdogs against the Hamilton Tiger Cats. They won that Grey Cup because they bullied the Ticats for 60 minutes on the line of scrimmage. And it certainly seems like that's the recipe for Mike O'Shea's squad going into this game against the Argos on Sunday.
Yeah, there was a really great moment that, like, I think anybody who follows me on social media knows that I tend to pick up on the little things, and often the little interactions between players, or even like little looks that guys give each other. You can really read into the kind of the human psychology of football when you look at the game that way. And I think if we look at the base level X's and O's, it's like, yeah, Winnipeg wants to be able to run the football. But you know what confirms that to me? Matthew Betts of the BC Lions, I think it was in the third quarter, maybe the early fourth, takes a little bit of a run at a Winnipeg ball carrier. I forget if it was Oliveira, maybe a receiver that ran over the middle. And Betts, number 90 for BC, turns, runs, and takes a shot. And the Winnipeg offensive line comes in. They don't like him. They peel him off the pile. We had our camera that was hanging over the top of that huddle. And I heard the Winnipeg offensive line say at one point, hey, let's go get 90. And when I heard them say that as the camera was hanging over the huddle, I watched the next play, and sure enough, they went after 90. They got real physical with Matthew Betts immediately. So that tells me everything I need to know about what they want to do moving forward into this game, is that they are absolutely going to try and push people around just like they did to Hamilton, as you say, on the line of scrimmage back in 2019.
We, of course, here in the PEG are focusing on the blue and gold and the defending champs, but what did you see from the Argos in the East final, and what are they bringing to the table?
The biggest thing for me, I think, is that McLeod Bethel Thompson has to hit on the deep ball. And that's been a missing piece of their offense throughout the year. I was hammering it going into the Eastern Final where, he had 103 passing attempts of 20 yards or more in the air going into that Eastern Final, and he had only completed 32% of them. And that was the least percentage in the entire Canadian Football League. So they had the most deep passing attempts because Ryan Dinwiddie really wants to hit that, but they were completing it at the lowest percentage in the CFL. That's not going to get it done. He might have the most completions, but if your percentage isn't high, then you're not being an efficient downfield thrower. In that game, he made a throw down the field to Curly Gittens Jr. Last play of the third quarter, 15 seconds left, 2nd and 7. He knows where he's going with the football the whole time. He gets the coverage that he wants, and he throws a strike, and it's a big, long touchdown, and that opens up the game. Well, how much did Toronto win the Eastern Final by? A touchdown. That's literally the reason why they won that football game is he made that throw. Sometimes it comes down to that. Can you make the throw in the moment that will separate you and get you a victory? I was really impressed by the fact that, he missed on a couple, but he made the throw that he needed to in the biggest moment of the game to separate himself from the Alouettes and Trevor Harris. The other thing that jumped out to me was, in terms of running back usage, everyone's talking about A.J. Ouellette and Andrew Harris splitting reps. In the Eastern Final, it was 33 snaps on the field for A.J. Ouellette, 23 for Andrew Harris. I think they're ramping up Andrew Harris to get him probably 30-plus in this football game, if I had to guess. Montreal was using that two-headed, three-headed monster with Fletcher Stanback and Jezron Antwi. And I think Toronto took a little bit of that because they saw how difficult that was to prepare for that. But they only had 2 snaps in the Eastern Final where they had Ouellette and Harris on the field at the same time. Here's the thing. Those 2 offensive snaps, one of them was a very long screen pass that went to A.J. Ouellette because they faked an inside run to Andrew Harris and got Ouellette out on the edge. So when they have them on the field together, they're playing off the fact that they're both on the field together at the same time. That's something that I saw that I liked. I think they'll expand that package a little bit going into this game. And if they do and they have success playing off of that, I think you'll see both of these guys on the field a lot. The only problem with that is it means you're taking one of either Markeith Ambles, Tavares Daniels, Tommy Neal. You're taking a talented receiver off the field to make room. But if you're moving the football in snowy conditions because you're playing with A.J. Ouellette, Andrew Harris, and fullback Declan Cross all on the field at the same time, that might be the answer. I don't know if that is the true answer to Winnipeg's defense, but they were able to get 22 carries and 111 yards out of Andrew Harris back in week 4. I wonder if they go back to that.
So much of the game is determined on the line of scrimmage, and we know what the Bombers are bringing to the table. I mean, how do you evaluate the battle between the offensive and defensive lines on both sides of the football?
Yeah, I talked to Dejon Allen yesterday and Philip Blake, who are the left tackle and right tackle of the Argos, just about going up against Willie Jefferson. And their biggest takeaway was that Willie's a dancer. Willie is essentially a tight end playing defensive end, and he gets knockdowns and he gets really long. But how Willie gets to the quarterback, even if you look back to 2019 and 2021 in those Grey Cups against the Tiger Cats, the way that Willie influences the game is if he can get a little bit of space off the line of scrimmage, and then he can start to dance. And so Toronto was basically saying, back in week 4 when they played against him, they jumped him. They kind of didn't let him get off the line of scrimmage because if you think about Willie Jefferson's great pass rushes, it's flying off the football, making one big dramatic move where he looks like a monster from Space Jam, where he just steps over everybody, and then all of a sudden he's hitting the quarterback. So if they can prevent that, I think they will. The problem is if Willie can find a way to adjust in game where, they're short setting him, where they jump him at the line of scrimmage, if he gives you a quick little, swim move with his arms and you duck your head, it's the same result. So he creates advantages for himself by just giving matchup problems. Jackson Jeffcoat being on the other side, that's going to be a big one, of course, as well. And then on the other side, I think for Toronto, their defensive ends have not created as many sacks as they would like throughout the season. I expect they'll try and bring a little bit of that secondary pressure, whether it's from linebackers or from the actual back end. But I do think that Winnipeg has the best offensive line in the Grey Cup. They'll control the line of scrimmage with the running game. If they can protect Collaros and he can find Dalton Show running open through coverage, they're in very, very good shape. And I think we'll find that out pretty early in the first quarter of how this game is going to feel.
Well, hey, you're a former quarterback, so you're a perfect guy to talk to about this. I know everyone expects Zach to play. He was not at practice yesterday. We've been breaking down the film of how he looked getting off the plane, unlike anything I've seen before. But let me ask you this. You need to know, an ankle sprain, he's going to play, but if he is limited in his ability to create time and space, moving out of the pocket, which is really a signature of Zach Collaros, What does that do to the Bomber offensive game plan and the challenge? And how big of a challenge is that for Buck Pierce when setting it up? What he plans to do against the Double Blue?
Yeah, I think we just saw the way that looked with Nathan Rourke not being able to move at full capacity, right? Is it limited that Lions attack a little bit, and not necessarily in scheming up, moving the pocket, but in being able to have that secondary playmaking ability that really separates the top quarterbacks in the Canadian Football League. So I don't disagree with you. I think it's a bit of a challenge. I'm interested to see whether or not they package in Dakota Prukop or Drew Brown in the first quarter with maybe a couple of snaps here and there to move the pocket. If they can leverage those guys' athleticism, if Zach is not 100%, then I think that they will probably do that if I had to guess. Imagining myself putting together a game plan. It's like, if we want to get this aspect of our offense in, but we can't do it with Zach, well, why don't we throw a couple snaps here and there, give Zach a little break? I do think the biggest tell on whether or not Zach is 100%, and I do fully expect him to play. I mean, hell, that guy's gone through getting ditched by multiple teams in the CFL, a torn ACL that ended what was going to be an MOP season in 2015, a concussion in Saskatchewan. I mean, damaged goods was the label on him, and then he revamped his career in Winnipeg. So all of those things have been huge amounts of adversity. It's a rolled ankle. Like, I'm pretty sure this is the same organization, is it not, that saw Chris Strevler play on a broken foot for 3 straight weeks a couple years ago?
That's the one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is a team that's going to allow him to do whatever he needs to do to get out there and play at a high level. But I think the tell in whether or not he is at full shape will be the first time that there's a rush on and there's an open escape route for him to get out of the pocket, because the Bombers with scramble rules on are the most dangerous team in the CFL. Much the same way that Calgary was when Bo Levi and Mitchell was 2016, 17, 18 for the Stamps. If they break the pocket, they get out, they can absolutely kill you. It's not a 10-yard gain, a 12-yard gain. It's a 43-yard touchdown pass to break the game open. If Zach has that open route to escape the pocket and he either can't or doesn't take it, that should tell everybody where he's at physically.
Marshall Ferguson, TSN CFL.ca, getting us ready for Grey Cup 109 between the Bombers and Argos in Regina on Sunday afternoon. Marsh, you mentioned the Argos maybe not being too into the cold. When we talk about intangibles, I don't know what you can say about the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They're the most together team I've ever seen, probably in any sport. They're the most well-prepared. They're experienced. I mean, it seems like they tick off every single box. How much of a challenge is it for Toronto to come together? I mean, this is a team that was going at each other number of times on the sidelines this year. What do the Argos have to do to get into that zone to be able to go up against a championship team like the Bombers and knock them off over 60 minutes?
I mean, it's going to take a lot of the intangibles that you speak of, and specifically, I think it's going to take winning the little battles, like whether it's special teams limiting a big return or avoiding the shanked punt like John Haggerty had in the first half against Montreal last week. Like, you really don't have the wiggle room to see, busted coverage. Oh, that's okay. We'll make up for it. Oh, look, they got a 50-yard return and we had a 10-yard return. That's fine. We'll figure that out later. You have to do the little things right if you are Toronto in this game. And what I'm really interested in is, throughout the year, Toronto was last in the CFL in rushing touchdowns, average gain per rush, number of rushing attempts. They didn't give a damn about rushing the football. We made a big deal down the stretch about, hey, AJ Ouellette, he's fun. Andrew Harris, when he was healthy, they ran the rock a little bit, but they didn't even get Andrew Harris a touchdown in the first half of the year when he was healthy before the torn pec. So I think that Toronto has to throw the football to stay in this game and define success. And that's going to put a lot of the onus on two people, in my opinion. One is obviously McLeod Bethel Thompson. The other is the most outstanding Canadian nominee from the East Division, Curly Gittens Jr., because this offense is based on alignment and formation. They're going to have Markeith Amble's going to the flats. DeVaris Daniels is going to run a go route here and there, maybe a quick screen once in a while. They're going to get the ball out of the backfield in the screen game to either of those running backs a couple of times. Curly Gittens Jr. is the only guy in this Toronto receiving corps who does everything. And if they have to throw themselves into the game, if Winnipeg's controlling the score or the time of possession with their ground attack, I think you're going to see Curly somewhere between 10 and 15 targets in this game. If he can make the most of them and be on the same page with McLeod, then Toronto can stay in this football game. But it's always dangerous when you're playing a team like Winnipeg. If you end up having your completion percentage to the receiver that you need to have a big day be somewhere around 50, 60%, you're in tough. If it's up around 70, 80%, you can absolutely make plays to win the football game. So, trying to do the equation in my mind of what this looks like, a path to victory for the Argonauts, if it's possible, it's probably McLeod throwing them into it, and it's Curley on the receiving end for a whole bunch.
We know what Mike O'Shea has done. I mean, we could talk for hours about the change that he's brought here to Winnipeg and what he's established. What's up? What's going on in Ryan Dinwiddie's mind right now? I mean, his priority for his team, not so much the game plan, but getting his team ready to match a challenge unlike we've seen in the CFL in a long time.
Yeah, I think Ryan Dinwiddie, everything you need to know about him is to study his evolution from 2021 to 2022, because in 21, he was, I think, trying to prove to everybody that he belonged. I think whether you look at the use of challenges, the use of timeouts, the offensive play calling, I don't want to say it was immature, because I think that's aggressive. That's probably the wrong term, but it was very much, I need everybody around the CFL to respect me, and I'm going to go get that respect. This year, I think it's not necessarily hands off, but you can see, even in the moment where McLeod Bethel-Thompson is screaming at him, you have to challenge this. That was a catch. Like, you have to support our guys. You can just see that he's kind of shrugging and being like, hey, man, I'm not going to do it this play. Don't worry. I got your back. We'll go get it on a different play. And he just seems more calm on the sidelines, despite the fact that that Argos sideline has been fiery, I would say 3 or 4 different times this season. Dinwiddie seems like he has a better appreciation for the big picture. And I don't think he'll sleep much on Saturday night. And I think he's hoping that he doesn't sleep much on Sunday night for different reasons. But I really do think that he is a more evolved coach this season, has a better understanding of the coaching staff he's working with, what their tendencies are, and how he wants to operate the game. Because I constantly think about head coaching and what the actual responsibility is of a head coach. It's really not to control the game and to master every call and to be a micromanager. It's about using your challenges correctly, knowing when to use your timeouts, being responsible with substitution packages so you don't get caught on offense, and then dialing up a game plan that you think gives you the best chance to have success. All you can do is put your players in a position to have success. If he does those 3 or 4 things, they'll have an opportunity. Here's the problem. We know that Mike O'Shea is going to give his players the best chance to operate. We know he's going to use his challenges and his timeouts correctly. So regardless of how good Dinwiddie is in this game, he's up against a coach that is probably going to outcoach him. And then you got to go up against Richie Hall on defense, who Dinwiddie's calling plays against. So it's not an easy road to victory for him. And I think that just speaks to the respect that we have to give the Bombers at this point, because when you're back-to-back Grey Cup champions and you're the team going in who's the favorite based on how great you've been in the regular season, that tells you all you need to know about the organization.
Yeah, they've handled pressure very well. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Marsh, you've been there for a couple days. I mean, listen, you look back at that West final. I was at the game. I'm not sure I've ever been part of a crowd that was more impactful on a game. I mean, we saw the Lions in the last minute having to huddle with their season on the line. I mean, there was penalties. Mike O'Shea said he wants this to be like a home game, and I'm sure half that stadium is going to be trying to get out there for it. But do you have a sense of what this crowd is going to be like? I mean, listen, Saskatchewan people hate the Bombers, and this would be official ownership of Mosaic Stadium if the Bombers get this done. First win, first playoff win, first West final win, and first Grey Cup win if they can run the table. Do you think that the Bombers will have a big advantage with their fans in the building, or will it sort of be somewhat 50-50 in that any neutrals will be looking to maybe have the underdog pull the upset?
I think the answer to that question needs to be answered by another question, which is how much do Saskatchewan people actually love the CFL? That's the question I have, because if you actually love the CFL and you are a Saskatchewan Roughriders season ticket holder, or you bought tickets, your team's not in the game. We're always told every single year, this is the home of Canadian football and everybody lives here as such a CFL diehard. Are you a CFL diehard, or are you just a fan of your team? Like, that's the question I have, because if they're just a fan of their team, yeah, Winnipeg's going to have the entire crowd on their side. If they are angry in Saskatchewan and want to show we own this stadium, keep your tickets, cheer for the Argos. Because I remember 2018 being in Edmonton when it was Calgary playing in that Grey Cup against the Ottawa Red Blacks. And it was, ladies and gentlemen, the 2019 West Division champions, the Calgary Stampeders. Boo! It was like, are we in Alberta? It's like, yeah, we are. But the Edmonton fans that were there had all decided, you know what? We ride with the Red Blacks tonight. And it created this amazing kind of friendly tension in the building that I would love to see come to life once again. So I'm looking at 2018 in Edmonton, Calgary, Ottawa as the template. I learned that night that people that really love the Canadian Football League that came to that Grey Cup, they were all in on the Ottawa Red Blacks that night. And I would love to see that happen again on the other side here.
Hey, one more for you. You mentioned that the Argos didn't seem to be too interested in the elements yesterday at practice. Bombers are made for the cold. We saw it. We saw it last year. We saw it again last weekend. Yeah. How much of an advantage is it for Winnipeg, the fact that this one's outdoors in the prairies in the middle of November?
It's an advantage. I don't care what anybody tells you. It's an advantage. It's whatever we decide to spin as storytelling, and the Argos are telling you that they're fine. Tell me you're fine in the fourth quarter when your heater breaks on the sideline. Okay. Like that's where I'm at on this whole thing, is that Toronto yesterday essentially did a walkthrough with all of their winter jackets on and jerseys thrown on over top. The Bombers came out and held an actual football practice. Like, they got after it on Wednesday on the first day. They've got the closed practice today. I wonder what each team is going to end up looking like in their private sessions. But what I do know is that yesterday I watched the entire Bombers practice from outside of Leibel Field in Regina. And by the way, the only media member to do so. Okay, I want to make that very clear, that I was making an effort to see what the conditions would do to my body in a full winter suit getup, and it turned out that I survived the day. So I think the players are going to be just fine. But as I was watching practice, my face froze. I could not speak. I could not have done this interview with you if I was standing out there on the field. Winnipeg is going to, I think, acclimate themselves a little bit better than Toronto will. And at one point in Winnipeg's practice, Dietrich Nichols, defensive back number 1, actually walked over to the heater that was running, turned it off because there were some players standing with it. He turned, you're going to love this, Hustler, turned it off, and without actually saying the word on your show here, I'll bleep myself, he said, F this thing, and then just walked away. So, I mean, that tells you everything you need to know.
The boys are ready to go to make it 3 in a row on Sunday. I can't wait. Listen, going to miss you and the rest of the gang out there on Sunday and the rest of the weekend, of course, which is equally as much of the Grey Cup festivities. But cannot wait to see this. And thanks for everything this year. Good luck on Saturday. And, of course, folks, check out CFL.ca for all Marsh's content. And hanging with the big guy, Dutch, on Saturday afternoon. 4 hours of Grey Cup content. Cannot wait for it. Marshall, have a great Grey Cup weekend and enjoy the game.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys. Congrats on another great season covering the CFL, and safe travels, Hustler. I look forward to talking to you when you get back.
Right on, Marsh.